Look deep into your heart and ponder well. Remember, I am a riddle, hard to tell. I grew where roads were broken, path unclear. I faced the 1,000 alone. Don't blame me here. I look around in amazement at the endless Kazakh steppe, stretching wide and open before us. There is no city, no trace of human bustle, only the boundless land. And yet it was on this very soil that a great sage came into the world. How could such greatness emerge here? He was brought forth by the revered land of Semey, Qaraul, Jitebay, and the lands that surround them. We are standing where the great Abai once lived, in the house where he welcomed his friends, and to speak here now feels like an extraordinary blessing. His presence seems to linger in every corner. The objects he once touched carry the imprint of his spirit. To sense that nearness is an immense honor. I consider Abai my teacher, if only he would permit me to claim that right. At just 13, Abai spoke of those he saw as kindred spirits in these words: Fuzuli, Shamsi, Saykhali, Navai, Saadi, Firdausi, Koja Hafiz, all of them. Grant me support, O poet, in my despair. He singled out these 7 poets as truly unparalleled. In life, some poets have no equal, and it was precisely these figures he chose as his models. He saw them as individuals of exceptional, incomparable value. And Abai said all this at the age of 13, showing that even then he had already defined the course of his future. Father, what is your purpose in this life? I've tied the reins of the horse of my people that no one can unleash it. I've tied the spear of my people that no one can take it away. After I built this hut on the razor's edge. Father, why? Why on the razor's edge? And this is a mystery that you have to solve on your own, son. Who have we come to regard Abai as? During the Soviet period, Abai was described as an enlightener, a philosopher, and a humanist. This was the highest appraisal of Abai at the time, and in this role as an enlightener, he carried that image through to the era of independence. When I defended my doctoral dissertation in 1994, titled Allah and Human Existence in Abai's Worldview, some suggested that I call it Allah and Human Existence in Abai's Philosophy. I replied that Abai did not have a philosophy and did not acknowledge philosophy as such. Philosophy is a Western European system of thought in which religion has no place. It is rooted in atheistic and materialist concepts. Therefore, Abai was not a philosopher. Above all, Abai was a poet, a great thinker, and a sage. Kazakh intellectuals refer to him with the word hakim, a term denoting a wise man or sage. Marjan Jumabayev even dedicated a poem to him, addressing him with the words, "To the golden hakim, Abai." True hakim, your words are priceless, rare. A single line of yours lives on through ages fair. From common clay you rose, a sage beyond compare. The world may lift its hands in prayer, yet finds no equal there. We inevitably repeat the words of Marjan Jumabayev. A single line of yours lives on through ages fair. A century passes, a new generation of young people grows up, and once more their hearts turn toward Abai. Another century follows, and yet another generation still seeks him. Thus, Abai's spirit continues to ascend. The more distant he becomes in time, the more exalted his presence grows. And who keeps that spirit alive and lifts it even higher? The Kazakh people, his own nation. I will not live to behold that day, nor witness it in my lifetime. But the times ahead will change, and the people will live in a new era. New laws will be established, and the days of great abundance will come, when the entire nation thrives in shared prosperity. For the sake of that future, if I can leave even the smallest mark, like a single reed or a single brick in the foundation, I will count my dream fulfilled. Carry my greetings to them, my friends. Carry my greetings. What do we learn from Abai? Abai is like pure air, pure water, and a pure body. He is the very embodiment of purity. If you wish to cleanse your soul, read Abai's works. If you aspire to achieve great things, read Abai. His words are precious and remarkable, and they demand not a single reading, but continual engagement. I am one of those who study Abai. I return to his works again and again, and each time I am struck with wonder. The celebrated poet Shakir Abinov from Semey once said that Abai's words bloom every day. What a beautiful expression! Why do they bloom? Because as we grow, so too does our understanding blossom. And the more people come to know Abai, the more they speak of him, the brighter, richer, and more profound his words become. Abai is like a dense forest, impossible to comprehend fully. Were it possible to understand him completely, he would cease to exist. He can never be entirely revealed. That is precisely his greatness. With every encounter, he unfolds anew, revealing himself in a fresh and illuminating light. Had Mukhtar Awezov not written the novel The Path of Abai, many of us might never have been able to truly approach the great poet. We would have only circled around him. It was Awezov who opened the door and guided us into Abai's world. The book was written during the war years, a time when there were the path of Lenin and the road to communism. And what does Mukhtar Awezov do? He declares the path of Abai. When the novel first appeared, I was only 13 or 14. By then, we had already been taught what the path of Lenin was, so I asked my father, what is the path of Abai? Isn't there already the path of Lenin? My father replied, I do not know, son, but perhaps the path of Abai is the path that the Kazakhs are meant to follow. And he was entirely right. Reading The Path of Abai, one encounters not just a story, but three towering minds of Kazakh history: Qunanbai, Abai, and, standing alongside them, Mukhtar Awezov himself. The brilliant Mukhtar Awezov fully grasped the power of the word, and thus the novel The Path of Abai was born. It was he who led us to Abai, turned our gaze toward him, and compelled the Kazakh people to reflect deeply. The Path of Abai is a book without equal. It is essential reading. It must be read more than once. I myself have read it around 10 times, and that is no exaggeration. Whenever you write, you return to it again and again. Whenever you seek inspiration, you open it once more, and every time it leaves you profoundly moved. How beloved Abai was to the people. Through his words, mourning and sorrowful mothers found their tears. Through him, wise elders and reflective citizens conveyed their deepest thoughts. By his voice and expansive wisdom, the hopeful young learned to turn from evil and reach toward brighter days. That is why Abai remains alive in spirit, even today. I truly found my way to Abai at the moment when I began to distance myself from socialism. My father despised socialism, and so did my grandfather.
Біздің арғы атамыз дін жағында болған адамдар.
Our forefathers were religious and prosperous people.
Темірғали Нұрекенов деген адам.
One of them, Temirghali Nurekenov, served in the Second State Duma and maintained close ties with Ali Khan Bokeyxanov and other leaders of the Alash movement.
Оларды жойды ғой 1900.
Their fate was tragic. In 1913, they were executed, destroyed.
Жойды.
Overall, the colonizers pursued a brutal policy against capable Kazakhs. My grandfather, Yesim, the last of our ancestors, was declared an enemy of the people. After that, the elders warned us, it is enough if you learn to read and write, but do not enter public service. Service is dangerous. You too may be declared enemies of the people. Such was the time, a troubled, harsh era. In our surroundings, precious words were often spoken, especially those concerning religion. I kept wondering, what are these words? Who said them? And why? I began reflecting deeply on this from the age of 13 or 14. Whenever I turned to my father for answers, he would gently direct me, ask your grandfather. My grandfather, Yesim, would always remind me, learn to grasp the essence of words, learn to listen with care, and speak in true Kazakh. We would insist that we were already speaking Kazakh, but he would correct us firmly. That is not the pure Kazakh language. Speak in the language of your people. It was that authentic, living Kazakh word that eventually guided me toward Abai. I enrolled in the Pedagogical Institute in Semey, and from that moment, the city became my true teacher. Its history, the remarkable people who had lived there, and the stories woven into its streets all left a deep and lasting impression on me. Semey shaped and guided me. Later, a potent influence came from the professor Hakim who lived and worked in the city. He became a pivotal figure in my path toward studying Abai. In his conversations, two names were always present, Abai and Mukhtar Awezov. I began writing about Abai when I was still very young, only a first-year student. At that time, dialectical thinking was in vogue. Texts were expected to be structured around opposing ideas. According to Hegel, thoughts must contradict one another, absorb each other, and from that tension, a new meaning would emerge. I tried to apply this approach to Abai, set his statements against each other, and then took the work to Hakim. He read it with astonishment and asked, "What is this? There is nothing like this in Abai's works. Where did you get it from?" "Dialectics," I replied. He dismissed it immediately. "Forget your dialectics. Write properly." From that moment, I abandoned the dialectical approach and turned instead to hermeneutics, a deeper analysis of a text and its inner meaning. That is how I created Hakim Abai, a strong and cohesive work, and it was Qayyum who set me firmly on that path. While Qayyum was imprisoned, he had the chance to attend lectures delivered by professors from Moscow and Leningrad. Later he would recall their words. When studying poetry, take one poem, one stanza, even a single line, and delve into it. That is where true depth lies. Those words remained etched in my memory forever. Afterward, I began approaching Abai in this way. First, I examined one of his stanzas. It opened beautifully. Then I turned to a single line, and it revealed even more. Through this careful reading, I truly entered Abai's world, and from that moment on, I could never part from him. When the 180th anniversary of Abai's birth is celebrated in this way, it becomes not merely a commemorative date, but a profound event that helps humanity remain true to its moral path. People gather in Jidebai, where countless yurts are set up, poetry is recited, the sounds of the queue fill the air, and Aitas contests bring the living word and spirit to life. All of this instills noble, thoughtful, and uplifting ideas into the hearts and minds of those present. In this way, Abai bestows upon us an inexhaustible treasury of spiritual wealth. He is a scholar who has devoted nearly 50 years to the study of Abai. 2 years ago, he became a laureate of the National Award for his trilogy, Ghulama Nameh, which comprises 3 parts, Hakim Abai, the genius Shakarim, and the great Mukhtar.
Екінші Danışpan Şakarim, üçüncüsü Keminger Mukhtar.
Hakim Abai has already gained international recognition. It was published in the United States and has sparked wide and serious discussion. Garifolla Yesim's Hakim Abai is a monumental work, one destined to stand the test of time. Once I learned that Hakim Abai was being sold in India and had received high praise from 2 professors. I was amazed. How could a book about Abai, a Muslim thinker, be published and read in the United States? I began to wonder what had drawn their interest. It was Abai's way of thinking. His intellectual legacy has become a brand. Today my works are being translated into many languages and wherever possible are finding their way to international readers. To reach a global audience, one must write with precision and clarity. The style must be clean and every word deliberate.
Маған осы Абаймен шұғылданғаннан бері бір құрмет пайда болды. Құрмет. Халықтан.
Since I began studying Abai, I have gained respect from the people. Later, I realized that it comes from Abai himself. The knowledge and wisdom he imparted serve as path that protect one from error. They are thoughtful guidance that keeps a person from going astray. Truly, one must learn to rely on Abai. A person must have a duty before those who have passed and before history itself. Just as we serve Abai, we must also serve Mukhtar's legacy. We created a monument to Ghaziza in 2013, so until 2013, she had been lying there without any marker, without anyone to care for her. When Marhabat Bayghut and others raised this issue and asked to take them to the grave of Ghaziza, the main character of Orphan's Lot, written by the late Mukhtar Awezov, they were told that there was no grave. They said, "Shame on you, how can this be? Mukhtar Awezov wrote Orphan's Lot about a Kazakh girl, yet you could not even raise a monument in her honor," and left. After that, I began to reflect, how could this have happened? And then we decided to erect a monument to Ghaziza and properly mark her burial site. I made the inscription. Her father and brother are also buried in the cemetery. She was a person of purity and inner light who became a victim of cruelty. A Kazakh girl must never be humiliated. It was Mukhtar Awezov who first spoke out in defense of Kazakh women, and this tradition must be carried on. When we set out to erect the monument to Ghaziza, my father called me and said, "Son, bring some workers. We need to fence off a grave here." We arrived at Qazaqstan, and the place struck me as a true wilderness, almost deserted. I asked my father, "Why are we working in such a remote spot?" He then sat me down and began to tell me about Mukhtar Awezov Orphan's Lot, describing the girl's life and the tragic fate of Kazakh girls of that era. We embraced that story wholeheartedly and decided to honor Ghaziza with a monument. Thus, Qazaqstan station became the center of our work, where several structures were eventually built. In the 1990s, amid the upheaval of the Soviet Union's collapse and the dawn of independence, many scientific fields were thrown into crisis and confusion, with philosophy particularly hard hit. It was in this climate that in 1990, Garifolla published a groundbreaking article that shook the intellectual world. Titled New and Kazakh Thinking, it became the opening piece in the first volume of Being of Consciousness. This was a profoundly challenging philosophical era. Everything was frozen, like in Antarctica, dominated by Marxism-Leninism on one side and the Eurocentrism on the other. At the time, the idea of Kazakh-centered thinking struck many as absurd, but he pursued it boldly. I still recall how, in the 1990s, Zeynullah Kabdulov remarked about him, Garifolla set Kazakh philosophy on a national path. In the 1990s, he was recognized as a thinker who brought profound disruption to the very system of philosophical thought, leading a genuine revolution against conventional, outdated modes of thinking. Within our modern education system, he introduced several original philosophy courses. Philosophy of continuity and philosophy of tradition are among them, and all of these are regarded as elective courses. He also developed courses such as business philosophy, the idea of the good Kazakh, and the idea of the Kazakh girl. Altogether, these 7 remarkable elective courses are the original courses of Garifolla Yesim. According to Abai, both the world itself and wealth are found in knowledge, if you turn your attention to it. And when a person dedicates themselves to knowledge, what kind of person do they become? A good one. From this insight, I formed the concept of the good person. For instance, Abai is a good Kazakh, Shokan is a good Kazakh, and Ahmed Baytursunullah is a good Kazakh as well. Here, good is not just a description, it is a measure, a standard of excellence. To be a good Kazakh is a distinction, a mark of honor and dignity.
Бұл кісінің шәкәрімге қосқан үлесі.
His contribution to the study of Shakarim is immense, as demonstrated by his fundamental 500-page monograph, The Science of Conscience. This work offers a profound exploration of Shakarim's philosophical concept, the doctrine of conscience, and the moral responsibility of the individual toward oneself and the world. Shakarim can rightfully be called a professional philosopher in the modern sense of the word, given the depth and systematic nature of his reflections. His key work, Ish Anaq, was long mistranslated into Russian as Three Truth. Yet truth, by its very nature, is singular and cannot be plural. Therefore, Garifolla Yesim proposed a far more accurate translation, Three Insights, a translation that conveys the idea of genuine, inner awakening. Shakarim speaks of the three insights, but what does he mean by an insight? The French philosopher Auguste Comte, a positivist, once said that philosophy was useless and that the only true sciences are sociology, biology, chemistry, and other exact disciplines. According to Comte, only that which can be studied and verified empirically constitutes truth. While it is true that the laws of physics and chemistry can be established through research, there exists a higher truth, the truth of thought. This is a realm Comte never reached. Although Comte fundamentally reshaped European philosophy and laid the foundations of positivism, Shakarim subjects his ideas to careful and rigorous critique. How was he able to do so with such depth and confidence? The answer lies in his education. He was a student of Abai. Shakarim's great advantage lay in having such a teacher as Abai to guide him. I have read his work On the Edge of the Abyss many times. It stands as one of the most profound works of philosophical prose written in the form of novellas. Particularly striking are sections such as The Teacher, The Lark, The Plague, and The Dream of Socrates, each composed with remarkable mastery. Socrates is, of course, a Greek philosopher, but where does the main idea lie? Through the motif of Socrates' dream and reflection on his philosophy, the author leads us to Anacharsis, the first philosopher of Scythian origin, and enters into a dialogue with him. The narrative then introduces the figure of a Scythian healer. All of this unfolds within Socrates' dream, and all these figures are interwoven, as Abai would say, into a seamless unity. The author avoids excessive length, instead demonstrating a rare ability to convey profound thought with brevity, precision, and expressive clarity. He has also made a major contribution to dramaturgy, and his plays have been staged at our national theatre. His intellectual reach is truly encyclopedic. Whether it's an article, an essay, or a novel, I'm always the first to read his work. After that, we discuss it together, often engaging in lively debates. He never leaves his novels or essays unfinished. He carefully reviews and rereads each piece 3 to 4 times, refining it to perfection. Even his articles receive the same meticulous attention, being thoroughly checked and reread multiple times before publication. Garifolla Yesim is my peer. Becoming acquainted with his work, especially his latest creations, requires preparation. It cannot be fully grasped at first glance. Just as approaching Abai demands readiness and understanding, one must be prepared to engage fully with Garifolla's works today. In 2007, by presidential decree, Garifolla was appointed a member of the Senate of Kazakhstan's parliament. We met at the session on the 1st of September, which marked the beginning of our close association. He joined the Committee on Social and Cultural Development, and we worked side by side for about 6 years. Since then, I have come to know him well. He was an outstanding member of the Senate, and during that period, he devoted particular attention to political philosophy. As a result, a 5-volume series titled Senator Garifolla Yesim was published. In each book, he reflects on the events of the year as a true thinker, offering a deep analysis of ongoing processes and carefully recording the most significant developments. 2 diary series, Senator Garifolla Yesim and Academician Garifolla Yesim, have been published, 6 books in each series. This is how I keep my diaries. For example, I attend an event dedicated to Bukhar Jarau, give a talk, and then write it down. This is what I said. And if at that moment a thought about Abai comes to me, I note that down as well. I record my thoughts, whatever gives me something to reflect on. But to turn a person's momentary flaws or stumbles into a written judgment, that is no longer a diary. So what is it that I seek to avoid? I seek to distance myself from human frailty, from pettiness, from baseness. It is not right to put one's own pettiness or that of another person onto paper. Abai teaches us not to boast about what we possess and not to strive to outdo others. In the book Inner Anguish, I carefully read and analyzed all of Leo Tolstoy's diaries, and one thing becomes evident. Tolstoy never allows himself to sink into pettiness. A great individual remains great even within the intimate space of a diary. These are the diaries we truly need. I also believe that such diaries will remain after me because I try to avoid human pettiness. And if, through a moment of inattention, my hand should slip, I apologize. To hate a person or to speak ill of them is the easiest thing to do. To reproach someone is just as easy, but recognizing one's sanctity and value and drawing a person closer to oneself is profoundly difficult. As a scholar, I regularly visit universities to deliver lectures. In many of these institutions, I have been awarded the title of honorary professor by decision of their academic councils. I have been given this honor at 16 higher education institutions, with all the relevant official documentation. Whenever my schedule permits, I return to these universities to continue lecturing. Mentorship has always been an integral part of my work. With the active development of the PhD system, this role has become even more significant. To date, 13 PhD candidates have successfully defended their dissertations under my supervision.
Garifolla
Yesim has been my teacher for 30 years, and I consider myself his student to this day. I respect him deeply, not only as a teacher, but also as a scholar who treats others with the care of a father and an elder brother. He previously worked at the philosophy department at a university in Almaty, and in both Almaty and Astana, he succeeded in building a strong intellectual school. As for the topics he gives his students, they are fresh and new. He gives much thought to issues concerning the Kazakh audience, whom today's younger generation listens to, where they take their direction from, and whose guidance they follow. Because he reflects so deeply on these questions, he proposes research topics along these lines.
Ағайдың бір өте үлкен ерекшелігі деп айтуымызға болады.
One of his remarkable qualities is a rare gift for inspiring students and truly nurturing them. I first met my teacher Garifolla in 2003 through my father, Yertis, who was himself his student and introduced me to him. More than 20 years have passed since then, and throughout all this time, he has continued to mentor and guide me. Thus, I can truly consider myself a second-generation disciple, a kind of grand student.
Hakim өзі Малбай деген Аққулы елінің тумасы.
My father is originally from the village of Malabai in the Akkula district. He often spoke about the local life, daily routines, and the great spiritual wealth and wise words of the elder men. Over tea, he would always share one heartfelt dream that at least one of his descendants would live in his birthplace. I fulfilled that dream by coming to work in the administration of the city of Pavlodar. Today, I work as a private entrepreneur, run my own business, and remain closely connected to this region, having put down roots here. Garifolla was born in this district and often returned here. During his time as a senator, he came up with the idea of placing a monument to Abai in the heart of the district. The site was selected, and it was decided that the monument would stand here. A statue of Lenin had once occupied this spot. The decision was taken in 2011, construction began in 2012, and the monument was completed later that same year. On the 1st of August 2012, Abai Day was celebrated for the first time across Kazakhstan at his initiative. Around that same period, he also installed a monument to Abai here in Akkula. The sculpture was created by Tokhtar Yermekov, a sculptor and a member of the Union of Artists of Kazakhstan, based on his original sketch. In 2018, Garifolla played a pivotal role in the renaming of our district. When the district elders proposed this initiative, he supported it from Astana, helping to ensure its successful implementation. Previously, the district had been officially known as Lebyazhinsky in Russian and Lebyazhi in Kazakh. Our village was first renamed Akku in the early 1990s, in 1992. The district, however, continued to be called Lebyazhinsky. Then in 2018, both the district and the village were renamed once again. Today, they are known as Akkula Village and Akkula District.
Garifolla екеуміз сонау 70 жылдардан бастап отасқан кезімізде көз алдымда студенттік кезімізде енді
I still remember clearly the day Garifolla and I married back in the 1970s.
шықпайтын.
During our student years in Semey,
Стипендиат болды.
he hardly ever left the Gogol library.
Ала жүріп бір
He received the Abai scholarship, and whenever he had even a single coin left, he would spend it on books.
құмарлығын
He was deeply passionate about learning and had an insatiable curiosity.
болды.
мен бір нәрсеге өте қатты
I am deeply convinced of one thing. The future of the Kazakh people is great. The Kazakh people will still reach great heights because a nation that has had a sage like Abai will never be left behind.
ешқашан да көршінің соңынан қалмайды.